Hello, Packer fans, wherever you may be. It is time for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast, your Saturday, September 20th edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Really excited to get into week number 3. I know it feels like it's been forever since we've seen the Packers play due to this 10-day mini bye because playing on Thursday night on week number 2, but we are on the eve of Packers versus Cleveland Browns. Just give you an update on our coverage for this game. Of course, we're doing this stream, and then we'll do a stream on Sunday morning, your pregame, if you will, and then we're going to do a postgame show for Packers versus Browns. So we'll be breaking that down. Very excited about giving you all the content you need before this game because this is a sneaky important game. All right. The Packers have some injury issues. Cleveland Browns are a dangerous defense. We cannot underrate them. And this is a classic trap game for Vegas. So we want to make sure the Green Bay Packers are focused in on kicking the snot out of the Cleveland Browns. It's a combination of not overlooking the Browns, not playing down to the level of competition, and not taking the foot off of the gas against the Cleveland Browns. We want this game to be kind of like week 1, right? So week 1, I was in the stands at Lambeau Field. That was probably one of my most fun sports experiences ever because it was week 1 of the NFL. The Packers were looking amazing. They were kicking the crap out of the division rival. Like, everything you wanted in week 1 was there. Week 2, they were kicking the crap out of the Commanders. Commanders found a way to get back in it in the second half. It was a little bit of a nail-biter towards the end. So we don't want that this week. I would much rather have another edition of week 1 than week 2. Although we looked very good against the Commanders, there were moments where they were having some success, especially at the end of the game. Got you a little nervous. We don't want to have that. When you have an opponent where you are better on both sides of the ball, it's questionable on defense. I think the Packers and the Browns are pretty much a wash on defense. And we're going to get to that really in our pregame show on Sunday as we talk about matchups specifically. But I think that the Packers defense versus the Browns defense is kind of a neutral competition. But the Packers offense is extremely much better than the Cleveland Browns. And again, we're going to talk about that in our matchup show. But there's no question that the Green Bay Packers should win this game by a touchdown easily. That's what Vegas has it on there. And I actually believe this should be a 2-touchdown win. Now, we do have some injury issues, which we're going to talk about next. But in general, I feel like the Green Bay Packers should win by 2 scores or more in this game. So whether that's 8 points, 9 points, 10 points, 11 points, I think the Packers should, if they play up their full potential, have a lot of success in this game and win by more than 2 scores. That is my expectation. Reality, we'll see what happens. And let's talk about injuries right now because they are going to play a big role in this game. And interestingly enough, I would argue that the Browns are in a worse place injury-wise than the Green Bay Packers. So let's take a look at the Browns' injuries first. Joel Benito, guard, has a back injury, did not participate Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. He's listed as questionable. In my mind, if a starter doesn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he's probably not going to play. And that's a huge issue for the Cleveland Browns going against the Packers defense. I'll be surprised if Benito is out there. Again, he's a veteran. If he truly is a game time decision, in my opinion, with the chances being that he does not play. I'm going to go through the key injuries right now. They have their punter with a right ankle injury. He's going to be fine. He's going to play. DeAndre Carter has a concussion. Did not participate on Wednesday. Participated on Thursday on a limited basis, and limited participation on Friday. He is questionable. I think that's a legitimate designation for DeAndre Carter. He's one of their depth wide receivers, so that's pretty significant. Maliek Collins did not rest, did not practice designation. Limited participant on Wednesday, full participant on Thursday and Friday. He will play. Maliek Collins, is a really key part of their defense. He is actually a very highly rated interior defensive tackle, and he's a big part of their rushing defense. So him being in the game definitely is a negative for the Packers, but I think that's to be expected. All right, we have Jack Conklin, the tackle. He has an elbow injury, limited participation all week, and he is questionable. I think Conklin will give it a try since he's been limited all 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But the fact that he is questionable with an elbow injury, he's not going to be at 100%. And again, the Green Bay Packers pass rush is so dominant right now that you could see a domino effect here in this game. Let's say Benito doesn't play and his backup comes in. Reduces the depth on the whole offensive line as well as the quality. Then you have Conklin with an elbow injury. He's not playing at 100%. That further degrades the offensive line for the Cleveland Browns. This could really be a big game for the Green Bay Packers defense as far as sacking the quarterback. You've got the Cleveland Browns with injuries on their offensive line. You've got the Packers, I think, on the verge of a breakout game. And you've got a statue back there in Joe Flacco. If you don't have a setup for the Green Bay Packers to get 4 or 5 sacks in this game, I don't know when you're going to have a better opportunity to have maybe your high in sacks for the year as early as week number 3. We'll see what happens there. They've got their safety, Grant Delpit, with a back injury, limited participation on Wednesday, full participation on Thursday and Friday. He will be a go. He's actually been performing really well, and we'll talk about that in the matchup game, but that's a pretty significant return. Mike Hall, defensive tackle, knee injury, limited participation on Friday, limited participation on Wednesday, did not participate on Thursday or Friday, and he will be out. That is something that will definitely help the Packers in the running game in this game. We've got Jenkins, the guard, shoulder injury, full participation on Friday. He will be fine. I think he'll be good to go. Their kicker has a left calf injury. It's just like a kicker to be on the injury report with a calf injury. Like, come on, man up a little bit. I know you're a kicker, and I know your legs are pretty important, but come on. He was a full participant on Friday, and he's listed as questionable. I would expect him to start in this game. Then we have Denzel Ward, cornerback, shoulder and cramping in the game on week 2. Fully participated all week in practice. He will be fine. And he's a really key part of their passing defense. So really good news for the Browns there. Not so much for the Packers, but what could we expect? All right, I'm going to talk about the Packers that are going to be impactful in this game. I'm not going to go through all of their injuries because some of these look like we're in good shape. So let's talk about Zane Anderson quickly, knee injury. He participated all week. I think he'll fall off of the injury report next week, and he will be available on Sunday. We've got Aaron Banks with a groin injury, limited participation Wednesday and Thursday. Friday, big part here, full participation. And Aaron Banks has come out and said that he is going to play in this game. He's done several interviews where he says he will be playing in this game. So that's great news for Aaron Banks because it gives us our critical depth back. So that makes Jordan Morgan back to being the backup swing tackle. Now, I've seen a lot of people say, why isn't Jordan Morgan on right tackle if Zach Tom's out instead of Anthony Belton? Well, they really want to build Jordan Morgan for next year's possibly being the left tackle. So it's really great if he could play on that side of the line, either as a guard or a tackle, because that will get him continuously used to playing on the left side, which is critical here. And he really is the biggest depth piece for the Green Bay Packers right now. He could play guard. He could play tackle on left and right side. He can play either in a pinch. So Jordan Morgan being the first player off the bench is really a big thing. So it makes sense to have Anthony Belton start at right tackle if Zach Tom can't play. We'll talk about that a little later. And having Jordan Morgan as the first player off the bench because he is really the most flexible player that isn't a starter on this offensive line. So good to hear that. Nate Hobbs, limited participant on Wednesday and Thursday, full participation on Friday. So Hobbs has now gotten 3 weeks in of practice, at least limited. He has also played in limited snaps in the game on Thursday. But the real benefit of Nate Hobbs is Carrington Valentine is playing so well on the outside right now. He's actually top 10 at corners in the NFL right now, believe it or not, that I don't know if you take Carrington Valentine out on the outside, because I think he's playing so well right now that you just let Nate Hobbs dominate in the slot, which is his strongest position, and let Valentine play on the outside. And then this secondary just gets so much better if you have Nate Hobbs primarily in the slot, especially as he's coming back from a significant knee injury. That's just good news for the Packers secondary in general. We had Josh Jacobs on the list for injuries, limited participation Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with an ankle. I have no question that Josh Jacobs will play. I think this limited participation was a combination of, he might have had a sprained ankle, but it was really more about some veteran rest for Josh Jacobs this week. Josh Jacobs knows his job. He knows his role. He's very good at it, and he's going to be beaten up in this game because the Browns are very good in the running game, run defense. So Josh Jacobs is really going to have to be taking a pounding today or on Sunday, and I think that's just veteran rest that they try to work him in. All right, Tucker Kraft. This is a huge injury for the Packers this week. We've got no participation on he wasn't listed on Wednesday. Limited participation on Thursday because he hurt his knee on practice in the middle of Thursday. Friday did not participate. He is questionable in this game. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to put Tucker Kraft in bubble wrap for this game. The more I see about coverage for Tucker Kraft's injury, the more I believe it's a minor thing, but do you really risk Tucker Kraft against the Cleveland Browns? You can win the game without Tucker Kraft this week. You put him in bubble wrap, and get him ready for the game against the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys are really susceptible to tight ends. They have a hard time covering tight ends in their defense, so you want Tucker Kraft to be 100% for the Cowboys game. Jordan Love was on for a thumb injury. As you know, he was a full participant all 3 game days. He will be fine. Bo Melton is back to being a full participant. I expect him to be available in this game. And this is really important because not only is Bo Melton one of your top corners off the bench when healthy, he is a key part of special teams. And we saw special teams really struggle in week number 2 without Bo Melton in there as a gunner for your coverage teams. And there's no question that Bo Melton is not a big plus for the special teams for the Packers. So it's really great to have him back in the game because the Packers are substantively better team on Sunday. They are significantly better than the Cleveland Browns. But what are one of the things that could get a team back into a game? Maybe a big play on special teams. So having Bo Melton in there back at gunner for special teams is going to be really big for the Green Bay Packers. Sorry about that. Let's go to Jayden Reed. We know he will be out. We don't have to talk about him. Let's go to Zach Tom. Zach Tom with an oblique injury, limited participant on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I really think Zach Tom is a true game time decision in this game. Now, there's lots of pros and cons about this. You could say, Zach Tom, we don't need you this week to beat the Browns. Take another week to get healthy. On the other hand, the offensive line is so much about continuity that you want your starting lineup out there if possible. So what I think could happen in this game, Zach Tom might be cleared to play on game day, but then if the Packers get a nice healthy lead, you might see Zach Tom pulled out and put Anthony Belton back in. So watch that very carefully. There's going to be hints on the rotation. That's one thing that the sportscasters don't really talk about in the games as much as I would like to see is talk about the rotation. They could say, oh, Zach Tom is in this game, in this drive. Anthony Belton is out in the next drive, because that really helps. You have to really pay attention as a student of the game and see who's in the game for your Packers. That's why knowing the numbers for the players is really so important. So you can say, oh, Anthony Belton's out there. Oh, Zach Tom is out there. So I think even if Zach Tom does play in this game, it might be limited. They might have him out every other series. They might have him out for the first half, build a big lead. Then you see Anthony Belton come in. Or the Packers might just say, you know what, Anthony Belton, you're our guy this week. Zach Tom, get back to being 100%. And they could have Zach Tom as an emergency option on the sideline. So even if Zach Tom is active, there's always a chance that they'll say, you know what, Zach, you can be a backup this week. We're going to put Anthony Belton in there, and you can come in if we really need you. So we'll watch what happens there. Let's take a look at the spread for this game. It's been very interesting to look at the spread with the Green Bay Packers in this game. Right after the game against the Commanders, it was 8.5 for the Packers. 8.5 on the road is a huge favorite. Huge favorite. 8.5 on the road. And then as we got into the middle of the week before the Tucker Kraft injury, the spread went down to 7.5, and it stayed at 7.5 despite the injury to Kraft. I think Vegas is factoring in some players are going to be back for the Packers, even if Kraft is out. They still have plenty of offensive weapons to win this game by over a touchdown. So I think that's why the spread is where it is. And that tells me either the sportsbook expect Kraft to play, and I think maybe before Friday it was more likely Tucker Kraft would play, but the fact that he didn't participate on Friday is a pretty good tell that Kraft probably won't play this week. But sportsbooks also feel the Packers have enough firepower to overcome this injury and still cover the spread. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. But I think 7.5 is a very realistic expectation. My expectation is they win by 2 scores, which is, guess what? 7.5, right? So whether it's winning by 8, 9, 10, or 11 points, I think we're going to be within that spread between 8 points and 11 points in this game. So I would take the Packers to cover the spread in this game because I do expect it'll be a 2-score win for the Green Bay Packers. But we're going to have to see what happens in this game. Now let's talk about some keys to the game. We're going to talk about matchups and additional keys to the game in our pregame show on Sunday. But I want to touch on some of the things the Packers need to do in this game because I think it takes more than one stream to really break down the most important things for the Packers to do. Number 1 on my list, number 1 with a bullet, Packers need to commit to the run this week. This might come as a dumb commentary by me, but the bottom line is the Cleveland Browns have the number 1 defense in the league per PFF against the run. They've allowed 92 yards in 2 games, including shutting down Travis Henry just this past week, and they've allowed a rate of 2.1 yards per carry, which means when you run the ball against the Browns, you get behind the sticks. But you have to commit to the run. And the reason you have to commit to the run is because it keeps the defense honest on early downs, so you can occasionally throw a big play on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 8. You go for a nice pass down the sideline because the Browns have to honor the fact that you're going to run the ball. If you become one-dimensional in this game, it only helps the Cleveland Browns because they have a very good secondary and they have a very good pass rush, obviously. So how do you negate the secondary and the pass rush? By finding a commitment to the run. Even if you only get 3 yards per carry, that would actually be an improvement against the Cleveland Browns. And that would be a successful down because it's keeping the Cleveland Browns defense honest. So the Packers really need to set up the run consistently, even if they're not successful, to let Jordan Love do play action and have success in the passing game. You can't have one without the other. Number 2, the Packers need to continue to spread the ball around and get some golden production from Matthew Golden this week. The Packers need to spread the ball around, but continue to have designed looks for Golden. Golden was fingertips away from a massive game against the Commanders. He could have had 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards in that game. So close. Especially if you look at the coaches 22, you can see that Matthew Golden is consistently getting open. He's just not getting the ball. I shouldn't say he's not catching the ball because he had 2 great opportunities that were just off of his fingertips. So we have to commit to spreading the ball around and getting some golden production from Matthew Golden this week. So what I expect to happen in 2 receiver sets, you're going to have Dobbs and Golden. 3 receiver set, you're going to have Dobbs, Wicks on the outside, and Golden taking the slot position. And I think you can have man beaters set up for Matthew Golden in this game, especially out of the slot on 3rd down, and he could be highly successful in this game. And you're going to have to do that to keep the Cleveland Browns on their back feet in this game. We're not going to dominate in the running game So we have to dominate in the passing game this week. And Matthew Golden has to have a big game because he has a good opportunity against the number 2 corner to have a very good game in this game. The Packers need to commit to 2 tight end formations even if Tucker Kraft does not play. This is very important to me because if you look at the Packers' success, they're more successful in the run and the pass in 2 tight end formations through 2 weeks than in 3 wide receiver formations. So that tells me the Packers need to commit to it. The Packers have enough tight end depth that you can have a blocking tight end out there, and you can have Musgrave out there as your playmaking tight end and be successful in 2 tight end formations. So what you see is in 2 tight end formations, you're going to see Musgrave play on the side that he normally plays at, and you're going to have probably Fitzpatrick or Sims in there where Tucker Kraft would normally play, and you just shift the playmaking tight end to the other side. And they could be very effective in 2 tight end formations. They need to commit to that. I'm assuming with Tucker Kraft being out on Friday that they spent a lot of time on 2 tight end formations with Tucker Kraft not in the game because they had to get up to speed for that for the game on Sunday. Packers have been excellent against man coverage against the Lions and the Commanders, and this week they face another team in the Cleveland Browns that play a lot of man. So the Packers, interestingly enough, the first 3 matchups, it's been man, man, and now man, primarily in the scheme. Matt LaFleur needs to have some man beaters dialed up in this game, ideally again involving Matthew Golden in the slot. The Packers were very good against the Commanders by having wide receivers go in motion to stop press on the line of scrimmage. They need to do that against the Cleveland Browns and especially with Matthew Golden. Also expect Savion Williams maybe to get his first catch in this game. That would be exciting. He's been doing a lot of jet sweeps. He did a wildcat last week, which was a lot of fun. But maybe Savion Williams gets a few catches in this game. Just as a depth piece and to keep the Cleveland Browns guessing in 3 wide receiver sets. The Packers also need to continue to stop the run and make the Browns one-dimensional. The Cleveland Browns only run the ball 29.5% of the time, mainly because they're always trailing in games. If the Packers can continue to stop the run when the defensive line can freely tee off against Joe Flacco and get some sacks on 3rd and long. I talked about it earlier in this game. Earlier in the stream. It would not surprise me if the Packers got their most sacks for the season in this game. You've got issues with injuries on the offensive line for the Browns. You've got the fact that the Browns are very one-dimensional in their attack. And this all leads to the Packers' defensive line getting to Joe Flacco early and often in this game. And if the Packers are getting sacks, they're on their way to a big victory in this game. Packers corners need to continue to shine in this game. Biggest threat for points in this game comes from the Browns' passing game. But the Packers can counter this because they currently have the number 1 rated corner in the NFL in Keyshawn Nixon. That's right, number 1 per PFF. And the number 8 rated corner in Carrington Valentine. Those 2 players are 1st and 8th at their position for PFF. Remember all those concerns early in the preseason about we don't know about these corners. I don't know if they're going to hold up. You know what? Having a dominant pass rush makes these corners very good. Nixon had 4 pass breakups in the game against the Commanders. He only had 7 all of last year. So this is a combination of the pass rush being so effective for the Packers, Plus, the corners are continuing to get better and better. Nixon is a better corner this year than he was last year. Valentine is a much better corner this year than he was last year. And they have Nate Hobbs as your nickel corner. This team is very deep and has a very high quality of play at the corner position. Number 7, we need to win the turnover game again against the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Packers have not been getting as many turnovers as they got last year, but they've won the turnover battle in every game, or it's been neutral. That's because Jordan Love is protecting the football, making smart decisions, and the defense is doing enough to stop the enemy offense consistently to not have turnovers be a huge deal. But the Packers are still positive in turnovers. That's the one way you could get the Cleveland Browns back into this game, is if you lose the turnover battle. It's one of the things that can really switch a game around, is losing that turnover battle. Now, could the Packers lose the turnover battle in this game by 1 or even 2 and still win? Yes. But their chances of winning go down significantly if they don't win the turnover battle in this game, because that's one of the things, along with a special teams play, that can really get the Browns back into this game. The Packers should dominate this game if they can do all of the things that I've indicated, and they have every ability to do so. So we're going to have to see what happens in the game on Sunday. So we'll be back with another edition of the Pack Attack Cast on Sunday morning. We're going to go through your breakups, your one-on-one matchups. We're going to take a look at some more keys to the game. We're going to look at the lineups for the Packers and PFF. Packers and the Browns on PFF, I should say. So we're going to go through all of that before the game on Sunday. So give us a subscribe if you've not already done so, and we'll see you tomorrow morning for our pregame show for Packers versus Browns. As always, go Pack Go!